I've been talking about how light bread is used in Appalachian Foodways. If you've missed any of those videos, I'll put a link in the description below to the playlist and you can go watch them. The first one is kind of an overview of light bread. I tell some stories, that kind of thing. And then the others are just sharing examples of how we use light bread. Today, I'm going to talk about one of the most common ways. Soon as I start describing it, I'm sure you'll come to mind all the ways that you use light bread like this, or other kind of bread if you prefer a different kind of bread. But it's just to actually put something between the bread and then fry the whole thing on top of the stove in a frying pan. The most common thing that comes to mind is grilled cheese. Lots of variations on grilled cheese. I've had grilled cheese and I really like it where they put really thin sliced apples in there with the cheese. That is really especially good. My husband Matt, his family, and he grew up like this wanting grilled cheese, so when I make his, I do it for him. I never, the ones we ate when I was growing up was never like this. But put the bread down, put your cheese, and then sprinkle sugar on it, and then put your other piece of bread, and then fry it like that. On one of my recent videos, a lot of you said that when you make a grilled cheese, you put a slice of tomato in there and then grill it. That sounds really good. Of course, really common, kind of similar, is just to put a piece of ham or a bologna or something in there and then fry that for kind of like a hot ham and cheese. A few of you commented and said that you like to make a sandwich like that and you use pineapple. So I thought that was extremely interesting. I've never had that kind of sandwich. Other than grilled cheese, the most common one that I've ate like this, kind of fried, or fried in a pan like that, a fried sandwich, is a fried jelly sandwich. I really like them. Compared to a grilled cheese, it kind of be iffy which one I like the best, the fried jelly or the grilled cheese, which is weird because I've called the one a fried jelly and then the grilled cheese. Anyway, but how I learned about fried jelly sandwiches is my family did not make them when I was growing up. I didn't know anything about them, but I had a dear friend, still have her, but it's one of those friends how sometimes you can remember, like, ones maybe you met in high school or middle school, or maybe when you were out of school, or maybe, just last week or last month or whatever, and they turn into really dear friends quickly. But there's a few friends that I have that I really can't remember not knowing. I don't really remember like pre-knowing them. So this is one of them. And her family grew up lived over Martins Creek, so that's where she grew up, not far from me. And her dad and my dad, Pap, that I talk about a lot, they coached baseball together. Her brothers played baseball with my brothers, my oldest brother, Steve. They were more his age. So our families had a lot in common. Of course, we went to the same school. So we were friends from, like I said, I can't really remember not knowing her. Now, her family was really interesting, of course, because I loved them. But when I look back, they were interesting. As an adult, I see it clearly because of when you think about the whole frugal living and kind of being out of debt and those kind of things. Of course, when I was little, I wasn't thinking about any of that. But they lived in a really old house. And I believe that it was actually, the people, I'm pretty sure, the people that lived in it before them, I know, actually, when I start thinking back about it, were Martins. So Martins Creek over there in the Martins. And they lived in it, and that's the first place I can remember like going home with her. And they had goats, and they drank goat milk. And then shortly after that, my memories switched to just out the road from there. And they didn't own that house, I don't think. I don't think that was their land. It might have been, though. They might have bought it. But the people that lived really close there, that would have been their old home place. So I'm not sure about that. But just out the road from it, they began to build their own house. So for many years they lived, and probably when I was first there, I didn't really understand that they were actually that it wasn't finished. But it was really that they built the basement first, and they lived in the basement. With 4 kids for a good long while. They lived in there. But they always had plans to actually build the next floor and even a next floor, but they did it a little bit at a time. And one of my other friends that I can't really not remember knowing, we were all friends, all of us, she used to joke, and it was funny, that if you went to our friend's house where they lived in the basement, that their family would often put you to work, which I looked, and she was just joking, but kind of too, especially if you're a young teenager, you're not really interested in working on somebody's house. But when I look back on that, I think, oh, what a great influence that was on all us girls, that the daddy would say, now come on, whether it was just carrying some boards, something simple like that, but he expected us to pull our weight for sure. And I look back on those days fondly. But she's the one that taught me to make jelly sandwiches. So we were there in the basement hungry one day, and she said, I know, I'll make us some fried jelly sandwiches. And I said, you'll make what? She said, just wait, you'll love it. Well, of course I did. I loved it. And so that's how I learned to start making them. She also taught me another interesting kind of fried one. You'll see if any of you know this, is or have heard of it or enjoyed it, was to put peanut butter and then marshmallow fluff and then fry that. Sometimes she would fry it, and then sometimes she would just eat it without frying it. But that's especially good too. And I think later on when I would see that, I would see the marshmallow cream or fluff, whichever you call it, and the peanut butter and fried. I think people called those, it was like flutter nutters or something. I seen that one time and I was like, oh, I remember that. But I didn't keep making that one, but the fried jelly one is one that I continued to make and continue to enjoy for all these years. So a fried jelly sandwich is so easy to make. Very, very simple, very quick. Quick like in those days when we were kids and we were hungry. Quick to eat, maybe with breakfast. Maybe have that and a little sausage or bacon or an egg or something like that. A very quick, easy fried sandwich to make. And I'm going to show you how I make mine. So of course any kind of jelly works. I do happen to have some of my fresh mulberry jelly. We've almost eat this whole jar up, so I'm going to use it. And of course how thick you want the jelly is totally up to you too, if you like a whole lot of jelly or not so much. And so when it comes to adding the butter, some people like to put butter in their pan, and some people like to put it on the actual bread, and I like to put it on my bread, so that's what I do. But either way works. And we just got to fry it. You could also melt your butter and brush it on there, but so then you can begin to see on the bottom when it gets to your liking how brown you want it. If you want it really, really brown or just slightly brown. You can see the jelly oozing out the side. It's going to be so good. You can kind of squish it down if you want to a little bit or not. So I got me some little Tommy Toes to go with it. They're so good. We've just been eating them out of hand, out of the garden. So fresh and so good. And I cut it diagonally. I love to cut them like that because that's how Granny made mine when I was little. Not fried jelly, but if she's making a peanut butter and jelly or something, she would cut it like that. So now I'll have to show you so you can see how the jelly gets all gooey in there with the butter. So good. I mean, really, how could it not be good with butter and jelly on the bread? Really good. Of course, you could add peanut butter and you could fry the whole peanut butter and jelly. When you think about fried sandwiches like this, I mean, it's just limitless, the possibilities. Of course, you can't really talk about them without thinking about Elvis and thinking about the fried peanut butter and banana. I've never tried that, but supposedly that was his favorite. So many different ways to use light bread when you're frying sandwiches. But fried jelly and I guess grilled cheese are my two favorite ways to actually use light bread to fry a sandwich. I love the fried jelly because it tastes good, but I also love it that it's got those wonderful memories tied to my friend and to her family. When I think about, like I was saying, I was glad that her daddy, would put us to work and make us work. Another thing that I often think about that he would tell us, his wise advice this is when we were teenagers, not when we were young kids, but when we were teenagers and we'd be getting ready to go somewhere. In those days, the popular thing for kids, teenagers to do in my area was to cruise town. So maybe we were getting ready to go to town, to cruise around town, or to go to a ball game, or go to the movies, or whatever. But if we were leaving his house, he would always tell us when we were leaving, he'd give us a hug or a kiss and tell us tell us that he loved us. But he'd always say, remember who you are. Remember who you are. And of course, in our teenage minds, we just kind of rolled our eyes and went on. But as I got older and become an adult and had kids of my own, I thought, what a powerful thing for him to tell us. He was telling us to remember where we come from, not to get into trouble, not to do the things we knew that we weren't supposed to do, but to remember who we were. We were his kids. We were Pap and Granny's kids. A really wise thing to say to your kids. He considered me one of his kids too, I know. So when I eat my wonderful jelly sandwich, I think about him and her and their family. So I hope that you enjoyed seeing my favorite way to use light bread when it comes to frying it as a sandwich. And I hope you'll leave a comment and tell me what's your favorite. Maybe you're like Elvis and you like those banana and peanut butter. Maybe you're one of the ones that said you put tomato with your grilled cheese or pineapple or all those interesting things. Please share your favorite way. And as always, I hope you just keep dropping back by to help me celebrate Appalachia, which is a whole lot of Appalachian foodways, which includes light bread.